big war with China. We begin tonight with the Biden administration trying to distract Americans from focusing on America's greatest enemy. Team Biden is slapping sanctions on Vladimir Putin's Russia. Biden laughingly claims that Russia is a national emergency, not the #2 economy in the world, China. Joining me now, former acting director of national intelligence in the Trump administration, former ambassador to Germany, and the creator of Fix California, Rick Grenell. Mr. Grenell, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Russia is no friend of the United States. I don't want to misunderstand. But they are teaming up with China in military exercises. They are aligning to harm America economically with China. But isn't the real emergency here China, not Russia?
Of course. I mean, look, what Joe Biden did today was manipulate intelligence, and Avril Haines allowed him to do it. Russia is a problem. There's no question about it. But there is no crisis other than, the typical Russia attitude towards Ukraine. Of course, that's always of an urgent matter. That's been going on for a very long time. And let's be honest, Crimea was grabbed under the Obama-Biden administration. So that has been created and been going on for a very long time. China is an actual crisis, and the intelligence will show you that. What they've been able to do with spies and with manipulation of intelligence, and to convince many Democrats to talk about Russia as the crisis, it's a look over their strategy. The Beijing line is for Democrats to say, look at Russia. And let me just give you one example, Chris. If this was an emergency, if Russia was an emergency, then why did Joe Biden allow the Germans to continue building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? Why isn't he making it more of an issue? He hasn't been clear. He's allowing Russia to, he's allowing Germany to feed Russia, to feed the emergency, and he's not doing anything. Matter of fact, he's dialed back the Trump policy of pulling 10,000 troops out of Germany, and he's increased troops. He's rewarding Germany. He's not punishing Germany.
Yes, he is. In the past, we have asked you to divulge as much as you possibly can from your time as DNI about the true nature of the threat from China. And you've been a little hesitant, and I'd imagine to protect sources and methods. What can you divulge to the audience tonight about the threat, economically, militarily, and of course from the China virus pandemic? What can you reveal to us about the nature of the threat of China?
Look, it's a crisis with China, and that's why I get very annoyed when people are trying to do this look over their policy of pretending somehow that Russia is a bigger crisis than China. Again, it's worth saying, Russia is a problem, China is a crisis. I don't want to go into great detail of what we know. We in the Trump administration tried to penalize China, tried to bring them back to the table. The engagement idea is always a good idea. I think President Trump tried to engage with North Korea. We've tried to engage with Iran. But you know what's worse than the engagement strategy? Is an administration who engages and never benchmarks whether or not engagement works. So you continue to engage when you know that it's failing. This means that the goal is engagement, not to change the behavior. And so we were very clear with the Chinese that the idea that bringing China into the WTO, for instance, the idea 20 years ago that we would engage with them and they would come to a greater sense of the rule of law or respect for human rights, it's gotten worse in China since we allowed them into the WTO. We need to benchmark engagement more in the United States, and we need to make sure that when it doesn't work, we stop it.
Yeah, and you know what? And this is graduated from engagement to appeasement. What Biden is doing is not even engagement. It's 100% appeasement. Mr. Grenell, you tweeted your support for the United States to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan, but some Republicans and Democrats in Congress, well, they're disagreeing with that. And the CIA is saying their ability to gather intelligence in the region will diminish when the troops leave there. Are there reasons for keeping America's longest war going valid at all?
Look, I fully support the policy of ending the U.S. troops in Afghanistan. My criteria is always when there is a threat to U.S. national security, then we send U.S. troops. And when that immediate threat is over, we bring the U.S. troops home. That does not mean that we don't continue watching or we don't have diplomatic or intelligence strategies. I think too much in this country and too many senators respond to crises with boots on the ground. That should be the last thing that we do. There's a whole bunch of other things that we can do. We have a culture here, though, when there's a crisis to immediately send in the military. Why not the State Department? And I know some people may roll their eyes at that, but we have incredible diplomats who are willing to go to the front lines and do diplomatic work and to try to put pressure on the Europeans or our Arab allies, others. Why does it always have to be American boots on the ground when there's a crisis? And by the way, I don't buy any of this that, we've got to do this because little girls can't go to school. That's an admirable reason to take some sort of action, but that action should be through the UN. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of other countries where little girls don't get to go to school, and there's atrocities going on. If there are crises, then let's make sure that we start with diplomatic measures. We start with the United Nations to do something. Let's not immediately go to the American military and American boots on the ground for these crises.
Okay, back to your state where you are, I'm assuming you're talking to us from there today. You said last night, you made some news on Stinchfield, that California Governor Gavin Newsom will not be recalled. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Look, I don't believe, for one, that, let's just look at the facts. We don't have a recall yet. We have enough signatures for a recall, but my personal opinion is that we're not going to get to that point because we've already seen Christine Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, come out in an interview and say, look, we know the dangers here of going to a recall, and Gavin Newsom will just resign and this will go away. My point is they know, the Democrats who run this state, and it's a one-party state, and it's filled with reporters in Sacramento who have long protected their sources and they don't want to come crosswise with the one party that controls this state. The LA Times is just atrocious. But the entirety of the team in Sacramento that's running this, between the media and the Democrats, they know what's at risk. And so either Gavin Newsom will step back right before this is qualified, as Christine Pelosi has hinted, and the lieutenant governor will take over and avoid the recall, or the rumors are going to be come to fruition that the Newsom people are starting to put out, which is Dianne Feinstein may just retire before the recall election, and Gavin Newsom would then appoint himself. The point on all of these rumors, and they're all rumors, is that the Democrats know exactly what's at stake, and they do not want to have a recall. So that's why I'm doing Fix California, which, if your listeners would go, and our viewers would go to fixcalifornianow.com, you can sign up to help us. We're going to do a long-term strategy of trying to do the hard work in California to make it more competitive. And there's a bunch of things that we're going to do, and it's listed on fixcalifornianow.com. I hope people will go and help us.
I got a lot of family out there in California. They need fixing, a lot of it out there in California. Mr. Grenell, always a pleasure to talk to you. Come back soon.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.